friends, and welcome to another episode of the Inner Circuit podcast, where we talk to founders, professionals, and change makers about building something meaningful while staying calm, confident, and clear in today's fast paced world. Today, I'm speaking with someone extremely talented, Deepti Sarma, an experienced M&A and startup lawyer from India with over 15 years of experience in the legal field. She's an Indian classical dancer and a mom too. She made a brave move by starting her own law practice and has since helped many startups handle complex deals and grow their businesses. In this episode, we talk about her journey, why she left the traditional law firm path, how she built her own practice. We also chat about the Indian legal industry, how it's changing, what options exist for young lawyers today, and most importantly, how she stays focused and steady under pressure. If you are a business owner, an early stage founder, or a young and budding lawyer, this conversation is for you. So let's get started. Hi, Dipti. Welcome to the
Hi,
show.
Ishita. Thank you so much for having me. It's
Oh,
a pleasure.
yeah, I think our viewers need to know that Dipti and I go back a decade. And I think where I started my legal career, Dipti was my direct manager or supervisor, if you could say that. And we worked together for about 5 years or something, and I know her, and she's an amazing person. And I'm so excited to speak to you, Dipti, today. I think our conversation is going to span a
Likewise.
lot of areas. So, okay, let's start with what inspired you to start your own practice after 15 years in the legal industry?
Okay. There was no specific aha moment. I think everything happened just organically. But if I had to really go back to one instance, about 3 years of me having started my own independent practice. I do independent consulting, and what really prompted me, as surprising as it may sound, are my own clients. When I resigned from partnership from the firm that I last worked in, a lot of clients wanted me to, and I had taken a short break to kind of contemplate on what I wanted to do next.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, a lot of clients reached out to me and told me that, we would still love to work with you if you're still doing something. And I thought, why not? I mean, why not take up this opportunity and see and test the waters?
Yeah.
A few clients gave work to me simply. I think it's the trust and the goodwill that you build over years. Um, and they reached out to me and they said, why don't you execute a couple of mandates for us and see how it goes? And I did one of that, and then there was no looking back. So, if I had to really point out to an inspiration, it would be my clients,
Right.
because of the multiple ways in which they reached out to me and told me that this is something that I should consider if I was not looking at any alternate career path.
Hmm.
I was looking for a good in house role at that point in time because I felt that it is perhaps the right way for me in terms of where I need to be.
Hmm.
I had seen the consulting side of things and I thought that it was time for me to move to the client side of things.
Right.
I wanted to also be involved a little more on the business side of things with clients, which is why I was very keen on moving in house. But as luck would have it, I think consulting is and is going to be my true calling. But having said that, what I do try to do is pick up work which is not just legal work,
Right.
uh, documents after documents. I try not to get into that mode. The mandates I pick up are also more on the strategic advisory side of things.
Hmm.
So, which is why I work with startups a lot
Right.
because it gives you the foot in the door to kind of know everything,
Hmm.
and you're not really stuck to just putting together a contract or doing transaction documents for them. I think being a part of a startup gives you that kind of a exposure.
Hmm.
So I have been lucky and I'm grateful that I have managed to in the last 3 years make such startups a part of my ecosystem, which satisfies me creatively as well. And I mean, there's always, I mean, you're once a lawyer, you're always a lawyer. It's in your DNA, and as much as you try, as much as you try to do something else or do something different professionally, I think you do come back to it's something that's a part of you. So what I have tried to do is branch out from that in a way that I also feel professionally and creatively satisfied with the work I'm doing. So I think it's been a trajectory. It began with clients reaching out to me and asking me to try out consulting by working for them, and it gradually gave me some clarity in terms of what kind of work I want to do. I think the difference with working with a law firm and me starting my own independent consulting was me getting immense clarity on the kind of clients I want to work with.
Yeah.
While, and like I said, I'm grateful and I've been lucky to build that kind of a clientele. I have waited, I have refused work which I thought is going to push me into the same space that I would be in, because once bitten, twice shy. And I think that what helps is that when you have told yourself that you are looking at a specific kind of participation with your client,
Yeah.
I think that you need to stick to it.
Hmm.
It is very tempting for you when you're trying to sustain in the beginning to take up any work that comes your way. I would lie if I said I didn't,
Hmm.
because obviously I had to sustain. But eventually, I started forging a path for myself where I could pick up work which gave me a little, like I said, professional satisfaction, of course, but also a first-hand involvement with founders
Right.
in the business that they're involved in.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. I am also part of the startup industry here. I advise small and medium business owners. So I also get
Hmm.
the thrill of advising them, because
Yes,
you get to learn about the business side of things. And also with AI and tech, they're
sure,
evolving constantly, and it's super exciting. Yeah, you do advise on law, but on a daily basis I get to learn so many new things. So my next
absolutely.
so my next question would be, how is the Indian startup industry? What does that look like? Is it like very sophisticated? Is it a mix? I mean, if somebody wanted to start their own business, right? What is their temperament regarding legal documents? What are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. As far as the startup ecosystem is concerned, it's flourishing.
Yeah.
The best part is that with the government also kind of streamlining opportunities and providing a lot of benefits to startups, whether it is on the investment side or whether it is on the compliance side, it is encouraging more and more startups, women entrepreneurs to kind of step up their game.
Mm-hmm.
The flip side of it is that everybody thinks they can be an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And I think everyone like wants to kind of dip their foot in the water and see whether something works or not. Having said that, capability all the time, and if you have a good idea, and if there is a strategic game plan in terms of where you see yourself as a brand, or as or as a person in the industry that you're choosing,
Mm-hmm.
then I think yes, India is an amazing place to be right now. However, it is, as far as the legal side of it is concerned, I do see that founders kind of peg that somewhere down in the rung when it comes to kind of putting together their business structure.
Right.
It comes back to bite you, and I have been a part of many such advisory work where you're kind of reverse engineering stuff, because you kind of need to go back to the drawing board and fix everything that has gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the realization comes very late. So the trend the trend that I see as far as legal work is concerned is that it is still given a kind of a stepmotherly treatment.
Right.
uh, there's so many instances that are coming out where there are corporate governance issues, compliance issues, um, but still founders do take it very easy when it comes to legal compliance, which is something that really needs to be fixed, especially because while the government is stepping up in terms of giving an advantage for you, or easing out compliances, or giving providing more investment opportunities, it is also kind of pulling up companies which are not meeting legal requirements.
Right.
So I think somewhere that gap, that understanding amongst founders is still very nascent. There
Mm-hmm.
are some founders, I have worked with all kinds of founders who are extremely careful about everything legal, founders who are willing to evaluate what's important and what's not,
Right.
and then of course the third category of founders who just decide to wing it and see that we'll fix it when the time comes,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is, like I said, compliances, whether it is having well written documents or good standard templates which you can use across the board. what happens is the problem multiplies depending on the industry that you are in. Right now, if you are in, say, a manufacturing space, every leg, if not covered by a contract, can come spiraling on you when eventually, say, you are reaching the cusp of an investment round, and suddenly you realize that nothing is structured when your investor is actually asking for something.
Mm.
So I think that that is something that needs to be plugged right in the beginning. Founders need to be a little more aware in terms of legal risks, the requirement of compliances, and having well-rounded documentation. Even no one's saying it needs to be complicated, but at least something very basic so that you can present yourself. See, everything is a consequence, right? Like, if you're well structured, it's you can beautifully present yourself to a potential investor.
Yeah.
So I think that still needs a considerable amount of fixing, because there are so many last minute delays, and then I have seen founders losing out on opportunities because they haven't been structured enough, or they haven't really been as legally compliant. Investors are very wary of investing in companies which are falling short
Yeah.
of compliances, especially if you're in an industry where it is compliance sensitive.
Right.
So it clearly reflects as the founder being negligent, and
So what's
that
in
is
your,
something that,
yeah, why is that? Like, why are they wary of actually making their companies compliant with the law? Is it because it's costly? Do you think they're not aware?
yes, I think the cost, I think there is a reasonable awareness. It would be, I think, with all the discussion that's happening around so many companies being pulled up for lack of governance, I
Mhm.
don't think awareness is a problem. I
Right.
think it is more to do with being complacent, focusing on the business more than the legal side of things,
Right.
because they feel that they always feel that legal issues are fixable.
Hey.
I think that is the sense that I get with when I speak to most founders. Their sense is that the legal issues are largely something that can be fixed or put in place
Yeah.
without too much effort.
Hmm.
And of course, cost is definitely, they would rather incur the cost for something else than be paying an attorney on a regular basis for putting structure in place, or having compliances in place, because, like I said, they always feel that, what I have seen in my experience is, if there is a potential investment and they are very, very sure that there's going to be an influx in the company, that is the time when they're willing to bear cost,
Right.
because they know that somewhere it's going to get nullified, or kind of compensated for. And you're doing it when there's a requirement. That is not an appropriate approach when it
Mm.
comes to compliance in India, because it doesn't take long for the government to come down very strongly, or
Yeah.
authorities to come down very strongly on you, and it just reflects very, very poorly.
Right.
And in fact, completely, kinds of put you on the back burner in terms of investments, right? Because your reputation is already out there in terms of being non-compliant. So I think founders need to be a little more aware to that front.
Absolutely. I think investors get really unsure. Like, it's like, okay, you've set it up, your business plan looks great, your progressions look great, everything's great, but why haven't you done your legals correctly? And that could also,
Correct.
and obviously we've done M&A deals, and that's also something that they could potentially use to bring the price down or renegotiate the price. So I think founders need to be
Yes.
careful, although it's a minor aspect of your entire business, the legals, but it's absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Yes, very crucial, especially in a country. If I had to speak about India, yes, definitely very crucial, where you have compliance at every step.
Hmm.
And like I said, it's industry specific, but
Yeah.
I can't think of one industry where you can come and tell me that no, the compliance is minimal.
Mm.
There are bare compliances at the very least, which definitely need to be looked into, and better safe than sorry. A stitch in time saves nine.
Mhm.
Whatever. I mean, it's just something you need to be aware of and just get it done. I mean, instead of incurring or losing out on opportunities, or incurring a big cost, or facing a reputational backlash. I
Yeah,
mean, all of these things are not good for your business. So
100%.
yes, I think an early awareness and kind of plugging in the issues early will definitely help founders a lot.
Amazing. Great. So now just moving slightly towards the philosophical side now. Like, now you're an entrepreneur yourself, right? You've started your own business, you're kind of exploring what's your niche, and you have built a niche. So what are some of the challenges do you face, like doubt, fear, pressure in your early days, and now, how do you navigate around them?
Between then and now, I think I think experience is the best teacher. When I took the plunge, I mean, no one I knew at that point in time whom I had worked with, I can only talk about peers and colleagues.
Yeah.
Everyone was either everyone was kind of mitigating the risk, right? You either move in house or
Yeah.
you continue to stay in a law firm because it's obviously something that you know. Like I said, it's in your DNA.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that you can do anytime, anywhere, or you join forces with somebody else and kind of build a practice together.
Yeah.
So, in a way, the risk is divided. You know that there is someone to fall back on when things go south, or the it's the partnership by itself gives you a lot of mental strength, especially if it is someone who's like-minded, right?
Right.
For me, I think I had reached a stage where I wanted to do multiple things. I wanted to become a little more multifaceted. If I went into the law firm life already explored, and I thought I needed to put a pause on that.
Yeah.
In-house counsel, yes, I was exploring that path, but at the same time, I also realized that I wanted my life to be a little multifaceted.
Yeah.
I have a lot of other interests in addition to being a lawyer, and I realized that over the years they were fading away into background.
Yeah.
Um, so I also wanted to be able to find time to be able to pursue other interests if I wanted to. And which is why I decided that I wanted to do this on my own.
Mm.
It was an unknown path. Nobody I knew at that point in time honestly really encouraged me to do this because I don't come from a family of lawyers. I'm a first generation lawyer. So, more of what they also told me was, why don't you try being an in house counsel and pursue a practice simultaneously? Kind of build that thing for yourself before you completely decide to go solo.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at that point in time, it was now or never for me.
Sure.
I was just very, very sure that I needed my life to have multiple aspects to it and not just get pegged into doing only law.
Mm.
Because law as a career is such, and I know you will agree that it can really encompass you completely.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, personal life aside, but it is something which demands your full attention, and it is something that when it's a commitment, say whether when you're working in house or in a law firm. Obviously, there are goals to meet. Obviously, you're answerable to people, and that comes over and above anything else that you may want to personally pursue. So
Agreed.
somewhere I felt that I may be able to balance that out. That was the only reason why I took the plunge. The fear was, of course, I have always been in when I moved out from a law firm as a partner. I've been in a senior role. I've always had a team to execute work for me. I had to take up the responsibility of finishing matters end to end.
Mm.
So, that whole thing about losing sight of the forest when you're looking at the trees,
Yeah.
because you want to be meticulous, you want to be very sure about everything that you're giving. I was stuck between being a first year lawyer and a senior counsel who's giving strategic advice to a founder.
Right.
So, I think the challenge for me at that point in time was bridging that gap,
Right.
right? Progress over perfection. I
Absolutely.
think it took me some time to understand that is going to be a very important mantra for me if I was going to do this on my own.
Mm. Mm.
So independent consulting is lonely. And I, at that point in time, realized that it is very important to have certain basics. You need to go back to your basics. You
Mm.
need to have some basic principles around which you are going to execute work for yourself and
Right.
also for the client.
Yeah.
And I think those were the challenges that I faced in the initial year, because I was also worried that in the quest of trying to be extremely perfect and giving the best output to the client, I was pushing myself so much that I could head towards a burnout very, very early.
Mm. Mm.
So I reached a point where I also then learned that I need to learn to choose work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to learn to pick up assignments which, like I said, of course, creatively fuel the drive that I have as a lawyer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I said, the basic principles that I have, they need to meet those requirements. Like, will I have time for my other pursuits? Will I have time if I take up ABC assignments? Will I have time to also service my other clients?
Yeah.
I think that kind of juggling and balance is
Yeah.
something that I learned in the initial year. So those were the challenges that I faced because I was doing everything for everyone.
Mm.
And with God's grace, work was constantly flowing in. And I had to then, at some point in time, draw a line and tell myself that if I had to continue to work, if I had to sustain and I had to do this well, then
Mm.
I had to carve out some basic principles for myself and stick to it, even if it means making some hard decisions. So,
Right.
yes, I have lost clients, I have lost work in the process, but I can very safely say today that it has not come. I'm still doing what I'm doing today, which speaks volumes. So it means that I have kind of tried to balance out uh, my basic principles in terms of what I want with the work that I'm doing. So
Mm.
yeah, I think those were the that was a critical year. The
Right.
first year was a critical year. And being a law firm output, it's very easy for you to get drawn into doing everything perfectly. And because we've done everything at some point of time
Yeah.
in our professional career, right? And when you're doing it all alone, you want to meet all of those benchmarks.
Correct.
So yes, I mean, I think figuring that out was a very very big challenge, and ensuring that I don't reach a burnout stage by taking on too much too soon.
Mm.
I think that was if that was very challenging in the first year of my work.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Hmm.
So how is your Bharatnatyam practice going?
So one thing, yeah. So there are a host of things that I like to do otherwise, whether it is something as simple as spending time with my daughter, or if whether it's reading, um, something that I picked up again as a very serious habit. I had lost out on that time when I was heavily into consulting and the law firm culture. And I once I went solo, I ensured that I have time to read. I ensured that I have time to practice dance. Yes, I am a trained Bharatanatyam dancer, and my daughter is also on the path of becoming one. So
Super.
I think yes. So it's something. All of these are things that I always make time for,
Mm.
and I don't compromise. I will work around it, but I will not compromise on the time that I need to allocate for any of my interests. I think that has been something that I have been very, very particular about in the last couple of years.
Yeah, you know what? That's amazing. And it's a luxury in today's world, if you see it, Dipti.
Yeah,
Because I mean, I have friends who are in law firms, who are in-house counsels, and they are constantly on the go. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. They love doing that. But even for me personally, I mean, I couldn't just do that one thing all my life. And I think
yeah,
having the luxury to spend time with your loved ones, doing things that you want to do once in a while, it's a luxury in itself.
yeah.
So you mentioned, so okay, I have two more questions stemming from this. One is
Huh.
you mentioned burnout, right? So
Hmm.
how, in your opinion, how can lawyers, young lawyers, or even law students who are uh, qualifying from universities looking for jobs, or who someone who started their professional practice or joined a law firm or an in-house role or started their career in general, and as well as founders included, we include all these subjects. So how
Hmm.
can they
Hmm.
avoid or prevent burnout, right? One question is that, and you can obviously think about it. The other is related to the law firm path. So for any lawyer who's not on a traditional partner track, right, or who doesn't want to go in-house, what would your suggestion be to them if they're going to say leave their job and start now?
So yeah, the let's deal with the most spoken about culture, the burnout culture, right? I
Yes.
mean, when I think in law firms across the world,
Mhm.
it's not only in India, but I think it's something which is prevalent
Yeah.
everywhere. I would say it is practice specific. It is not something which is. It would be wrong for me to generalize that law as a gears you up for burnout. I think there are a lot of areas of law which you can practice, which can still give you the balance you want, which can still be a sustainable career for you.
Right.
But yes, there are several aspects, or there are several
Sorry to cut you there.
fields of law.
Dipti, sorry to cut you there. When you say practice, just for our viewers who don't know what a legal practice, what does the term
Hmm.
mean? So can you mention like the different kinds of practices for a lawyer?
Sure, sure. So law a lawyer is obviously a very broad term. It's the kind of work that you do, which we call in our lawyer parlance as practice.
Yes.
So it could mean you, it's basically your area of expertise.
Mm.
So it could mean intellectual property, it could mean competition law, it could mean media and entertainment, it could mean corporate law, it could mean mergers, acquisitions. In a lot of cases, each of them are a subsect of the other too. But when I say practice areas, what I'm trying to say is that the kind of work that you do, whether or not you will be working long hours, whether or not you will be pushed to your limits, depends on the kind of practice you pick. Not all areas of practice are as intensive as, say, maybe like a life as a merger and acquisitions lawyer. A transaction lawyer, I think today, if I have to say, would be the one who is most pressed for time and who is most susceptible to a burnout. Pardon me if I'm generalizing, but in I mean, I can
Mm.
only speak for the areas that I have been aware of, but I do see that more often than not, transaction advisory lawyers are, they're almost on the brink of burnout nowadays. I see very, very soon.
Mm.
I think when we started off, it was very new. I graduated in 2008, and there was this full boom, and everyone was very happy doing the work. The money was coming in, and it was all new. But eventually, you realize after 6 or 7 years that it's corporate law, or especially being a transaction lawyer, is a very intensive commitment,
Mm.
and it's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
It's something that you really need to. It comes at a cost.
Mm.
Not necessarily. There are some colleagues I know who manage it beautifully.
Yeah.
I think they have their priorities set,
Mm.
so they are able to manage it beautifully.
Mm.
And so I think that burnout happens when, I think there are multiple reasons for burnout. One, obviously, when you're working too much and
Yeah.
you don't have enough time for yourself. One, where you feel emotionally so detached and disturbed at work that even if you're giving your best output, it doesn't keep you happy. What you're doing is you're just spending long hours at work and you're not really happy with what you're doing. So it's important to sense the signs of a burnout. That at our time, this was not something that was discussed. If
Mm.
you are tired, they would say, go take a holiday, go
Yeah.
take a 5 day holiday and come back.
Yeah.
Go on a break for 15 days and come back, and then you'll be fine.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
So nobody really discussed these issues, or they don't really, there is no proper discussion around what a person is feeling.
Yeah.
As you grow senior into the profession, the possibilities of burnout are higher, especially now. For example, if there are personal situations also happening alongside, and you are also at a responsible position at work, especially given that law doesn't really, you don't really have a demarcation of time for yourself. So
Mm.
what happens is you're caught in this turmoil of doing so many things that eventually your brain just numbs out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that what you need at that point in time is a lot of support. You
Mm.
need to speak to somebody. You need to, and the solution is not taking a break and coming back, because the 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 reason for the burnout is far more deeper.
Mm.
So I think the individual themselves need to. I have been through that phase, and I know how difficult it is to come back. A hiatus, a career break later is when I realized that what I had faced was not healthy,
Yeah.
and it didn't work for me.
Mm.
So I'm not saying there's no one size fits all. If you ask me for a definition of burnout, there is no definition for burnout. Burnout is different for different people.
Mm.
If you don't feel as professionally committed or as emotionally committed to your work, and if you feel you're not able to compartmentalize and it is taking a toll on you, that's the time you need to stand and pause.
Mm.
It's really that simple. Like I said, the reasons are different. What you feel is different. A person who's just doing a regular job, maybe not even working long hours, would still feel burnout,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It comes from a deep sense of unhappiness. And I think it is very important to realize that earlier. I'm very happy that young lawyers today are very, very aware about what it can lead to.
Mm.
And while it may not be the right thing to do all the time, but I do see them setting boundaries when I work with them, in terms of the fact that this is not going to happen today. This is something which is not going to be, we won't be able to deliver it today. We need a more reasonable timeline for this. And the way they communicate is beautiful.
Mm. Mm.
It's not refusing work, it's drawing boundaries. So I see more and more young lawyers. I respect that.
Right.
There was a time when I would have felt that at your age, this is not the answer I would have given my senior. But
Absolutely.
when I have started developing an immense sense of respect for people, for attorneys who are able to tell that to me,
Mhm.
and on the other hand, who also value my time.
Mm.
So it works both ways. And I see more and more awareness about this amongst young attorneys, not as much amongst clients, but definitely amongst young attorneys who are willing to draw that line without thinking about what the client is going to think.
Mm.
And I think that speaks volumes about where we are headed towards the burnout culture.
Right.
So see, there are two ends to the spectrum. There are people who are working towards it and want to create a sustainable, because they've learned from other people's experience,
Mm.
and they want to have a sustainable career for themselves, and they make those choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if the choices don't work, they're more than happy to step back.
Mm.
Then again, there are people who still stick to that same culture and also have an expectation that others feed into it,
Mm.
which is where I think the disconnect happens. But I think to each his own. My only point on burnout is you need to realize the symptoms very, very early. Don't wait for it to reach a stage where you ultimately are left um, wanting in terms of what you want to do next.
Yeah.
As far as possible, it's better not to push yourself till that stage before you realize that you're already into it. And trust me,
Yeah.
what happens is, that's one more thing I realized, that you know that you are in it, you
Yeah.
know that you're dealing with it.
Mm.
um, if you're if you're speaking to people who are not giving it enough attention, that's the time you need to step back and not keep pushing, thinking that, oh, maybe the problem is me and not
Yeah.
the external circumstances. So I think that is the time when you need to kind of introspect. If you're able to do it at that point in time, it saves you months, sometimes years of unhappiness.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to see how the mindset has shifted over the years. So if this was 10 years
Yeah,
ago, now people nowadays are more vocal about, going through a burnout or depression, anxiety, and and employers understand that. If this was 10 years
yeah,
ago, they would come back and say, "Oh, you can't handle pressure," right? Or
yes,
you
absolutely right.
and grind. So, I mean, I think people are becoming more aware of these mental health issues. Well, I shouldn't call them mental health issues, but they are just, okay, things that trouble you, right? And I think
Yeah,
self awareness is so important. I mean, the therapy culture, it's growing so fast in India, and that's okay. But I have a thing that, okay, if you want to talk to someone, go ahead, share. I mean, if you don't have anyone else, or you don't have a support system, friends or colleagues that you can open your heart to, go ahead, have therapy, get fixed, because these are all issues in our mind, right?
yes.
Nothing is tangible there. It's all in the head, right? And which is why it
Hmm.
pushed me to write the Inner Circuit book, because I feel that people are with yoga, and I think it's very underrated, yoga, and it's so valuable. Like, if you do pranayam every day for 5-10 minutes over a week, you will see the changes. Like, you will have more clarity,
Yes,
you'll be more calm, right? And I've seen it myself. Like, I think the person I was 5-6 years ago, I'm like quite different from what I was back then, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah, and then I feel like we can do it ourselves, but because we have distractions, like we have technology, we are constantly on the go, we don't pause and sit and give ourselves that time. I'm not saying just sit and meditate, but people don't even have time
Hmm.
for 5 minutes of introspection, right? I mean, I can be lazy, lie on my
Yes.
couch and look at my phone, but I can't just sit and focus on my breathing. That's so hard to do. Just try doing that. You won't be able to do that. you know?
Yeah, I know. It brings up a very interesting point for me. It's one of these authors whom I follow very closely called Ryan Holiday.
Yeah.
He believes his writings are basically around the principles of Stoicism, which is an ancient Greek philosophy of leading a virtuous life,
Right.
right? And think so. He has written a lot of wonderful books, but the one book that really has a special place in my heart is Stillness is Key. And I recommend this. I can't stop recommending this to anyone I meet who is looking to kind of shift their perspective in life, whether personally or professionally, because I think his writings had a very, very good impact on the way I thought. And it helped me a lot in the initial year that I was struggling with trying to find a purpose for myself.
Mm,
The one thing that he really, that the one thing that he says, like you rightly mentioned, is life is in the pause.
mm,
There's one more thing that he says is that you can't control external circumstances, but you can control how you react to them.
absolutely.
There are a few things that really stand out. There's one more thing that he says is that don't fight the urge. No, fight the urge to kind of do important tasks slowly.
Hmm.
I think what happens is that we kind of tend to, in the quest of trying to do everything too much too soon, we do not demarcate between tasks which are important and tasks which are less urgent. So
Mm,
I think what he says is that once you figure out, it's like an archer. He gives the example of an archer who has to take his time before he shoots his target, right? Um, it has to be free from distractions. It has to be well thought of, and everything around him or her has to be, the focus has to be immense.
yeah, yeah.
So what he says is that take that time. So he kind of compares it to that, and he says that you need to stop, fight the urge to finish too much too soon.
Mm,
And I think that that is something that I kind of remember every time I feel that I have to run through like a long to do list, and I tell myself that no, you got to demarcate. You got to give yourself time for things which are important,
yeah,
and there are some things which aren't as, which can be quickly kind of taken care of. So I think there are a few things. I can't stop recommending his books to
right.
anyone I meet. And
I
from
think
what you were telling me when you mentioned about the pause,
yeah,
I kind of
Lord,
thought about him.
Lord Arjun understood that when he was, you know, but in the
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, I think we all need to kind of bring back that kind of focus in our life.
Yeah, I mean, I think the potential is limitless. It's just that we don't have the time to tap into it. We choose not
True,
to tap into
very
it.
true.
Yeah, yeah. How beautiful. Okay, so yeah, coming to that other question I asked you, Dipti, about what do you think young lawyers who don't want to go the traditional law firm path or who don't want to work in-house, what career opportunities do you think they can explore in the legal space?
See, other than other than being in a law firm or other than being in house, I personally do feel that you can't start at the top.
Hmm,
Okay, my answer is going to be a little different over here. I'm not by any means trying to say there is no career outside of a law firm or being an in-house counsel, but I think it is very important to understand how industries work first before you deep dive into you wanting to branch out into something. You can't do something that you don't know.
hmm,
So I think to begin with, it is important to gain some kind of an experience in the law firm space or in the in-house space, however it might be.
yeah,
But yes, working in a particular sector, working in an industry, working with mentors who are well aware. Like I have had the privilege of working with colleagues, seniors, mentors, partners who have had such a wide area of expertise, right? It was very sector agnostic. It gave me a deep insight into a lot of areas which I would ideally not have. So I think that to begin with, you can't shy away from either of these. You have to pick up to have a more. Today, the world is not moving. Even life as a lawyer right now, Ishita, is not how it was before. The expectation is not about whether particular section of the Companies Act or whether you know how. How some judicial precedent was dealt with. Of
hmm,
course, that's equally important. But the expectation from clients also now is for you to have a deeper understanding of the industry. And that comes when you work with people who have that sense of awareness, who work with people who are able to give you the right guidance, show you the right path in terms of not only legal understanding, but also commercial understanding.
hmm,
I think any practice of law that you pick today,
hmm,
uh, previously when we used to talk about a commercial understanding, it always used to be associated with a transaction lawyer. when you're kind of putting together documents, you need to have not only a legal bent of mind but also a commercial bent of mind. But now it's not true. Today, if I had to pick up media and entertainment as a sector,
Yeah.
right, it's equally important for you to, so it's not enough for you to know the trademarks act, the copyright act, or how AI works. No, it's not important. It's also important for you to know how the market perceives it, how industries are evolving, how companies are taking stance on several issues which are currently governing the sector. So all of that is something that you will know when you work either with attorneys who specialize in something,
Yeah.
or in the industry in house when you are working in a specific sector,
Yeah.
specific industry, right?
Good.
So I think to begin with, you can't shy away from that. Like
Mm.
everything I do today, I owe to the practice that I have had in the last 15 odd years with several mentors and several seniors who have given me immense knowledge, and who've been open to kind of having those discussions and giving me that sense of learning.
Mm.
So you can't really dive into something, say, um, you want to be independent or you want to do strategic consulting, you want to do. So I feel that to begin with, either of these is a must,
Mm.
right? After that, how you want to kind of branch out your career, it takes a few years for you to decide that. See, there are a lot of opportunities which are available otherwise. Like I said, you can also move into the business side of things with your legal knowledge. If you have worked in the sector, I know where industries offer very good roles to lawyers who also have a deep sense of understanding of the industry.
Yeah.
So you don't get pegged as a classic lawyer who just churns out documents, but you are also involved in a lot of high level business
Yeah.
discussions. So that's a role which you can look for.
Mm.
There's legal research, there's public policy, there, I mean, opportunities are there, but, and I also feel again, it's ever evolving,
Mm. Mm.
right? It depends on what works and for whom.
Great.
So there is no one specific answer to this, but I personally feel that you have to do the traditional path for wanting to kind of chart your own path later in life as an attorney. So you can't not do that.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
That's great. That's well said. Yeah. I do see a lot of legal role changes. There is a book called Tomorrow's Lawyers, which my co-founder
Hmm.
at Sprint Law, he suggested that I should read. And it talks about obviously traditional lawyers are going to get wiped out because technology and AI is obviously going to
Sure.
be so
Yeah.
much around us. So unless you are an expert, like a data analyst, right, or you are an expert in your area of practice, I mean, it's very interesting, that book. It kind of brings about different kinds of roles for lawyers. And there are lawyers who do operations. So who are handling not just the legal stuff, but also managing operations of the startup itself. So, I mean, like you said,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, so like you said, like having that industry knowledge, having the knowledge
Yes.
about the business, so you can actually, as a lawyer, okay, like, once a lawyer, always a lawyer, you can also
Yeah.
wear multiple hats, right? And I
Absolutely.
think as lawyers, we can multitask a lot. I think that's how we're just trained. So, uh, yeah, I
Hmm.
think while they,
And trust me, yeah, sorry to interrupt, but founders appreciate lawyers who come with that skill set a lot more,
Hmm.
because when there are investment rounds and when there are some kind of when there's a certain kind of positioning that's required with investors, I think as lawyers, because of this all-round knowledge that we tend to gather very very quickly, like I said, we somehow are wired, if you're trained well, you are wired to gather that kind of understanding very very easily.
Yeah,
So when you are a lawyer of that sort, founders take to you very very well, and I think they welcome you with open arms on their growth path. So
yeah.
you're right. I mean, being a part of operations and getting first-hand knowledge of the business works brilliantly for lawyers.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of the legal trends, now obviously the Indian legal industry is evolving rapidly, right? And with
Hmm.
entry of foreign law firms, I mean, how do you think that's impacting Indian lawyers?
Honestly, not as much.
Mm.
This is still in the nascent stage. I know that there were some rules that came out in 23, and then there have been a couple of handshake arrangements since then. I don't think it's picked up as much traction.
Got it.
I think earlier this year there was also some talks about amendment, making this something that the center would handle as opposed to the Bar Council of India. I think it's still a very evolving discussion. It's
Mhm.
not something that I wouldn't say it has caught up full on with the Indian law firms and with foreign law firms because everyone's testing the waters.
Mm.
As such, I think that see even when the laws came up in 2023, I think the Bar Council came up with some rules.
Yeah.
Uh, it was all on the basis of reciprocity.
Right.
I mean, it was not something. So I think it wouldn't really impact us as much. In
Okay.
fact, it would perhaps give more opportunity, easy opportunity for us to, as Indian lawyers, to get uh, more hands-on awareness about how things work globally.
Mm.
I think we need to look at it. It's not like we don't work with foreign law firms, Ishita. It's not like the only difference being we'll be working with them
Mm.
here and they would have an insight into our work as well.
Yeah.
But I think that is something that, as a part of our transaction advisory service, you and I both know that it is something working hand in hand with foreign attorneys is something that we do very, very often.
Yeah. Yeah.
This just gives more validation and more ease of business to both the Indian and the foreign law firm. And I think the opportunity, the laws are different. There will never come a situation that a qualified Indian lawyer will be out of business. I don't see that because you're always going to need that legal mind. Yes, it will differentiate between the average and the better lawyers
Right.
because obviously the better lawyers are better equipped to walk hand in hand with like a perhaps a seasoned foreign lawyer from one of the big firms who decide to come into India. So yes, it will definitely differentiate the average from the better and the best.
Mhm.
I do see that happening. So it will kind of everyone will be needed to step up their game
Yeah.
to stay relevant. But I think isn't that what we are doing anyway?
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Okay.
know,
Okay.
Staying relevant. We are all trying every single day.
Yeah. No, there was this whole hoo-ha about, Indian lawyers gonna go out of jobs because foreign.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, but that's not the case, right? So
Yeah, I don't think that can happen. Like I said, our laws are so vast. It's not easy for someone to step in and kind of take the reins.
hmm.
We'll have to do this together
Right.
and see this moving individually. This is definitely something that I see happening hand in hand.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. And in terms of AI and legal tech, what trends have you seen, in the legal industry? Are law firms or legal teams, are they using AI as much? Are they focusing on technology in delivering legal work? What's the trends like in India?
I think so. Being someone who's been working by myself, I don't think I mean, I have colleagues and peers who are working at law firms, and we do keep exchanging notes on what's going on. But I think we're still at a very nascent stage in terms of we still love our people.
Right.
I think we're still in a very nascent stage of kind of adopting AI as a part of our working in the legal fraternity in that sense. But
Mm.
it is something that I think is something which is unavoidable.
Mm.
I do see that we will need to equip ourselves gradually and kind of the accept that technology is going to form a very important one, and it is something that clients also want
Mm.
because I think legal costs are always looked at as very high, and clients do have an expectation for us to adopt uh, AI as a part of our work to clients in ways which is possible so that it kind of not only cuts on costs but also helps them standardize um, outputs to some extent wherever possible.
Mm.
Um, and of course only need have legal intervention where there are specific cases where so that kind of that it's something which is obviously more beneficial to the client than to us, but uh, we are a service industry and it's impossible for you to escape the requirement of a client. What you can do is obviously balance out both human intervention and AI. Whether it has picked up big time in India, not yet. I don't think it's as full fledged in
Mm.
terms of we still believe in us having been able to give personal attention to clients and there's a personal involvement in terms of providing output to clients. So I think yes, it's picking up, and I think it is something that is unavoidable. But I wouldn't say that it's now a norm in law firms, at least
Mm.
not to. I mean, that's what my conversation with my peers lead me to understand.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, especially with, the litigation side of things, because there's so many case laws
Yeah,
how does AI learn all of that and then compute and evaluate and give you the answer? Like, it'd be interesting to see that.
Exactly. And when you are in a service industry where crores of rupees are involved, I think, say in a particular transaction, it's I don't know that, maybe I'm a very old school lawyer, I don't know, but somewhere I feel that there is a place for everything and
Yeah,
everything in its place.
yeah,
There are some things AI can do for you, there are some things it can't.
yeah. We
And
Gen Z lawyers can probably.
whoever's,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, whoever's able to identify that will crack it, I guess.
Mm,
Okay,
mm.
okay, where can it be used to the benefit of the client, and where the client is not going to benefit out of it, and if you can communicate it appropriately, I think that's the key.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay. And being a solopreneur yourself, right? How do you deal with uncertainty, of the business? What would your advice be to founders and young people generally, if they're starting their own business, or not just young people, anyone who even in their 40s it decides I want to quit my job and start my own business, right?
Mm.
So how do you deal with uncertainty, and what would your message be to someone, like how to draw strength from the uncertainty of the business and all of that? Because I think that also kind of the pressure of not knowing what lies ahead can also kind of create fear and anxiety and doubt in your mind. So what would your message be to someone like that, and how do you deal with it in your personal as well as professional life?
I think I largely believe in following my gut. I am a very strong believer following my instinct. Following my instinct and of course rationalizing
Mhm.
over it, as contrary as it may sound. But I think that if there is a certain push within you which tells you that you need to do something, then it's always good to follow your gut. Uncertainties are looming large everywhere, whether you are in a set job, whether you are in a perfect marriage, whether you are, there's nothing which is life doesn't come with guarantees.
Absolutely.
Doesn't mean that everybody should take the plunge into becoming independent. You should know what works for you.
Hmm.
When I say follow your gut, it means you should know what works for you. If you feel you don't have the, it helps for you to like to speak to somebody who's done that.
Hmm.
You should speak to someone and understand what were the challenges that they faced, or what is it that they would advise, given you can always have a discussion with somebody who's been in a similar situation if you're still feeling that nudge. So when I say follow your gut, something's telling you to do something, but you want to take an informed decision, speak to somebody who's done it.
Hmm.
Try and get an understanding of what the highs and lows are going to look like, and then decide for yourself, and then no blame game, right? You've taken an informed decision by speaking to somebody, and by following your own instinct. So I think that it's very important for you to follow your instinct, but at the same time also have an open discussion with someone who's done something similar. I think that helps a lot.
Hmm. Hmm.
Secondly, don't isolate yourself. I think that's the biggest mistake you can make. You need people, especially when you're, like I said, it's a very lonely journey when you're a solopreneur. It's very easy for you to get sucked into doing your own things, but
Hmm.
it's very important for you to speak to people and try, it helps you resolve your uncertainties. Right? There are times when things are not going your way. It helps to pick up the phone on somebody and say, you know what, it's been a month or it's been a couple of months, things are not looking up too much. Is there something? You never know. The best advice comes from the most unpredictable front.
Unexpected, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not saying that go around discussing it with everyone, but with people whom you know who have your best interest, and
Correct.
people whom you know will be able to guide you appropriately, who are in the same industry, people who are your colleagues or peers, or someone who will be able to guide you through or navigate you through it,
Hmm.
and not just say empty words. Someone who's able to. So sometimes you need that kind of professional guidance,
Right.
or where you can actually find a solution if things aren't going great. I think the beginning of everything is acceptance. To accept that everything comes with its own ups and downs is something that will help you flourish as a solopreneur.
Hmm.
You will be prepared. It needs a lot of mental strength and determination to be able to tell yourself that there are going to be good days and bad days, and there's nobody for you to share it with. Like I mentioned, a lot when I started off, a lot of my own peers were into partnerships, or you always have a group of people to talk to.
Yeah.
So I realized that sitting and just whining about the fact that, oh my God, I'm in this mess and I have nobody to talk to is not going to help.
Right.
I just pick up the phone on a few people I trust. Obviously, you've created that for yourself over the past few years. You've created a network of people whom you can speak to. You've created a network of people whom you trust. Pick up the phone, ask for advice, calm yourself down, and find a way out. So I think there is acceptance of the path, not isolating yourself when you find yourself in the midst of uncertainties which you can't get out of,
Hmm.
right? And if possible, always have a plan B.
Right.
I know that a lot of people who've taken paths similar to mine have multiple pursuits. I mean, it's not just working as a lawyer. They also have multiple pursuits as maybe doing something, converted their hobby into a career,
Right.
right? I think what they also do is that not only serves as a distraction, but also serves as a backup sometimes for you when things are not looking great on the work front. So
Got it.
I think that having a plan B also is something that I would recommend if it's an option. See, like I said, it's not something that everybody can do, and it's not something that occurs to everybody. You just tell yourself that no, no, I'm going to do this and this.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not everyone will have an alternate skill set which they can monetize.
Yeah.
But if you can, then nothing like it, because it eases your mind to a very, very large extent when things don't look well in either of the fronts, right? So I think, yes, having a plan B also helps a lot over a period of time in dealing with uncertainties.
Okay. Yeah, well said. I think with that, we will end the podcast, Dipti. Um,
Thank you so much, Ishita. It was lovely speaking to you. Like I said, that I haven't voiced this,
any parting words?
I haven't spoken about this in the last 3 years as such, like really, really openly in terms of what has transpired. But so yeah, it was very insightful to speak to you.
Amazing. I had a great time. I
Likewise.
Yeah, I kind of had a sense that this will be because A, you are one of the strongest women I know, right? And I'm not just saying that
Thank
because
you.
it's the podcast, but I have seen you over the past decade. Like, we don't talk that much, but I've seen your journey, your professional journey, your personal journey, and all of that. So I feel like, and you are so eloquent as well. So I knew that this will be a smashing podcast, and it was. So
Thank
thank
you.
you so much
Thank you.
for your time,
It
and
was amazing. Thank you so much for having me.
and I wish you all the best with your business.
Thank you.